Hello, welcome. So today we're in r/slash relationships where there is something very, very wrong with OP's dad. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in listening to today, then stick around and enjoy. And don't forget to like and subscribe, please. Thank you. So this post is titled, Dad came to my apartment with toys for two young kids. I do not have any kids. Okay. Long time lurker, first time posting, I am coming to you, the brains of Reddit, that always find some angle I never considered. Because my dad did something so wild yesterday and I'm spinning myself in circles about it. I'm trying to settle on an answer, but nothing really adds up. I'll break it down as thoroughly as I can, but my family has enough drama that it could fill 10 novels, so I'll be very to the point about it. So I will reiterate again that I do not have any kids and I'm not married. I have never been married, never even moved in with a man. Here are the people I can think of that might be involved in this, somehow. I have one brother, 27M, and one sister, 22F. Brother is in a long-term relationship with a nice woman, but they're both not interested in kids right now. Sister lives at our mum's house, no kids, no long-term partner. My parents are divorced and my mum remarried. Dad stayed single. He lives with uncle, 40s, M, and uncle's wife, 40s, F. Stepdad is fine. They got married after I was out of the house. Sister reports that they're normal and beige together. He has no kids and has never met my dad anyways, so his family can be removed from the equation. Here's what happened. I have a crappy, low-rent apartment about 45 minutes away from my dad's house. It's on the 3rd floor, and you have to walk into the apartment building and up flights of stairs to reach my door. Yesterday, around 6 p.m, my dad knocks on my apartment door. I wasn't expecting him, so when I answered, I was confused, but pleasantly surprised. I greeted him normally, and he gave me a side hug because he had a few toy boxes in his hands. Like Fisher-Price toys for really young kids, even babies. I didn't say anything about them, I had no reason to assume they were for me, like I just didn't even register them in my brain. He looked totally normal, he wasn't breathing weird, he wasn't sweaty, his pupils weren't huge, nothing was off with him visually. When we hugged, I didn't smell anything weird, no alcohol or smoke or anything, but my face wasn't too close to him. Yeah, that would be weird. I said I was happy he dropped by, but why was he here? He said he was in the area shopping when he saw these toys, which he then held up for me proudly, and wanted to give them to the girls. I said, who? And he gave me two names I didn't recognise. I remember my brain sorting through the Rolodex of everyone I've ever met in our family Terminator style, and nobody matched. As I'm standing there trying to match the names to any kids I knew of, he peeks over my shoulder into my apartment and asks if the kids are here or if they're with Mike again. Again, who is that? Apparently, it's my husband. I must have been radiating confusion, since now my dad is looking just as confused as I am, but still keeping up a good mood kind of vibe. Oh, how bizarre. Maybe dad is showing some signs of like early dementia or something, perhaps? Because I know that that can cause confusion, and maybe he's thinking of like a friend and their kids or something. How odd. Obviously, the other possibility is substances that perhaps you can't smell, you know, ones that are on the illegal side. I tell him I'm not married and I have no kids. At first, he insisted I did, and when I reiterated that, he just kind of shook his head. At this point, I'm getting really concerned. Is my dad lost? Confused? Is he having some kind of breakdown? I ask my dad if he knows where he is. He starts to get frustrated really quickly and confirms that yes, he knows where he is and who I am. I start to ask him questions that I've seen in movies, like, do you know what time it is, or the year? And he just gets more and more angry. He starts shouting at me right in my face, yelling, you think this is funny? And are you trying to make me look stupid? The bubbles of spit in the corners of his mouth. He went from 0 to 100 so fast, and it genuinely scared me. I just retreated a bit into my apartment. When I backed away, he took it as personal offence and started screaming, oh, now you're scared? You're scared of me? Guess I'll just F off then. Oh my goodness. Yeah, something's wrong with Dad. He storms off, literally stomping his feet like a child down the hallway. I thought about chasing him, but he was so irate that I didn't think it was a smart move. Whole interaction was less than 5 minutes. I closed and locked my door and immediately started making phone calls. I called my mum, uncle, and siblings. Nobody has any idea what just happened. I did ask my mum and my sister if I was crazy one and did I have children I just forgot about. They confirmed I certainly didn't. Uncle said that Dad left the house around 4 p.m. to run errands in my area, so that part was true. I told him what happened and he said he'd try to figure out what was going on and would call with updates. It's tomorrow morning and I haven't heard anything back. Yeah, like I think you would genuinely start questioning your own sanity at that point if someone was that insistent you had these children and husband that you didn't know about. I'd be like, wait, do I? Am I the one having a breakdown? I spent all night trying to figure this out. Here are my theories. He has another kid somewhere that none of us know about, and that kid is married with 2 kids. But if that is true, why my apartment? Did he confuse me with his other hidden kid? He confirmed he knew where he was, so I'm not sure. Did he drive here on autopilot? Oh my god, he drove? Like when he's clearly so confused? Oh, that is scary. He'd have to get out of his car and walk all the way up here, though, which would have been enough time to snap out of it. The anger might have come from him realizing what he'd done and panicking, but it would have been so easy to make up a lie about what happened. He had some kind of mental breakdown. This was my first thought, but he looked and acted so normal. He drove out here and went to a store and purchased items without issue. Yeah, but he's not acting normal, is he? Because he's gone and purchased toys for imaginary kids and thinks you have an imaginary husband. And then when you challenged him on it, he got absolutely, from what I am assuming, uncharacteristically aggressive. That's not normal acting. Just because he's able to act out activities in a normal manner doesn't mean he is acting normal. People who are having a breakdown or people with dementia will quite often follow patterns of things that they are used to doing quite easily and quite perfectly well without putting anyone in danger, but they're still confused and there's still not something right. He drove out here and went to a store and purchased items without issue, so he must have been decently in sound mind to do that. Maybe he was somewhere else in his mind? I considered the idea that he was maybe in the past and thought I was someone else, but again, he confirmed where he was and who I was, and I didn't recognise any of the names as anyone in our family. Or he did this on purpose for some reason. I have no idea why he would do this. Drama? Our whole family loves to stir the pot, but this is extreme, and it makes him look bad, which is out of character. If he were here to manufacture drama, he'd want to make himself look good. So this would be a drastic switch in his dramatics. Maybe sympathy? Maybe he's going to play this up, some kind of stress breakdown? As far as I know, his job doesn't squeeze him too much. He's had the same position for years and was pretty happy with it. The most he complained about was having to work overtime every once in a while. Or he's developing dementia. I know early onset dementia could be the cause, but he's just barely 50. Yeah, he's getting older, but not that old, and he's never shown any signs of cognitive failure up until this exact point. This is a huge escalation from nothing. Well, in that case, could it also be a head injury? Could he have hit his head at some point? Because that can cause sudden onset of confusion, where the person is still actually able to carry out normal day-to-day tasks, but they can also be sometimes very confused about why they're doing a certain task, or they think they're doing something which they're not, or again, like the whole thing of him all of a sudden thinking you have kids, doesn't mean he can't carry out day-to-day tasks that he's used to, but he's really confused and all of a sudden thinks you have kids. Maybe it's a head injury. If anyone else has any idea what is happening here, please share. Uncle has yet to call me back, and my siblings can't get through to my dad's phone. I think it's dead. I left a voicemail and texts on my uncle's line, but who knows if he's seen them. I don't have any authority in his life. The only one that does is my brother, and he lives in another state, so it's not like he can help much. What the F happened to my dad? And then down in the comments, the real scroters. Oh my god. Something is seriously wrong with your dad. Even if he does have a secret kid somewhere, confusing you for them like that is already a bad sign. Him somehow concocting a family you have and being that certain of it, along with the mercurial mood, is a really bad sign. I won't speculate as to what is wrong, but your dad needs to see a doctor yesterday. Yeah, I 100% agree. This is just not normal behavior, I don't feel. And I feel like if he was on, a substance or if he was drinking, you'd be able to tell because A, you'd either smell it, or B, people who are on something, they tend to have it written all over their face. Like you can just tell. And then the OP replied, agreed, but I really don't know how to make him go. I don't have any medical authority over him, and I think calling the police would be a bad move that would destroy any trust he has in me. Like, having him dragged to a hospital after a mental breakdown has to be bad for his mental state, right? Maybe, but also very necessary because he could be a danger to himself. If he has literally made up children and a husband for you in his head and is aggressive because he's confused, and aggression is quite often a symptom of confusion in like head injuries, dementia, something like that, then it's only going to be a matter of time before he gets aggressive with someone and hurts someone else, or he wanders into a situation where he gets harmed. Now, we do have an update for this, so I'll read that for you now. Hi everyone, I wanted to wait until I had more information to post an update, but a lot of people were seriously worried about my dad, and I, so I wanted to let everyone know what happened. I finally found my dad. My uncle took him to the hospital the night of the incident and was, for reasons I'll get to, ignoring our calls and texts. Anyone that bet on head injury and substances, you're correct. You can cash out your chips at the front counter, haha. There was no second family. I wish there was. My dad would just be in a drama-related trouble and not medical trouble. He's got a massive concussion and a serious brain damage. Oh my goodness. Doctors don't know how he managed to even drive to my apartment safely. Well, I can give a little insight on that actually. Again, I watch a lot of documentaries about sciencey stuff and things, so please, let me nerd out for a minute. It's actually been shown that people with head injuries will quite often still be able to carry out day-to-day tasks or tasks that they're very used to doing over and over again, as a lot of those tasks are controlled almost subconsciously by one part of the brain. So if a different part of the brain has received the brain damage, say the part of the brain that recalls people and what people are connected to who, well, that would explain why he was confused about who you were married to, or that you were even married at all, and that you had kids, but could then still go about his day as if he normally would and be able to drive just fine and find his way to you just fine, because they're kind of stored, those tasks are stored in a different area of the brain. The brain is very clever like that and also very scary like that. They think he was on autopilot since he takes the freeway nearly every day. The Phantom kids are his co-workers. His brain somehow blended the details of his co-worker's life into his own. Co-worker has a daughter who is married and has 2 kids, and the memories of being told about the girls mashed together with the memories of his own daughter. Doctors say this is pretty common with head injuries. Yep. Yeah, apparently so. Again, like I was saying, it is quite common. Like if a certain part gets damaged, that part can be confused, where the other part of the brain that does something else will work quite fine. There was a man, there was a case basically where their son pew-pewed his wife and him.
Editing me just popping on to clarify that it wasn't a pew-pew, it was an axe. I somehow had got that wrong. I must have been thinking of another one. I watch a lot of true crime. But I've put up the case on the screen here for you anyway to have a little read of. I got this from Wiki, but yeah, it's very interesting.
And the man got up in the morning and went about his day despite the fact that he had a massive hole in his head, because the part of the brain that controls the everyday mundane tasks was intact. And this guy had looked himself in the mirror and everything, and because most of his brain was damaged, didn't even register there was something wrong with him. He then made his way outside, I think probably to go and pick up, post or something, like his mail, and then collapsed outside and ceased to exist, essentially. The brain is an insane organ, it really is. And it's fascinating. My uncle did find my dad and take him to the hospital. He did drive out to my area and scour the place looking for my dad, and eventually found his car outside Walmart around 10 p.m. Couldn't find him outside, but did find him out behind the building harassing an employee for a cigarette. He grabbed my dad and kind of dragged him into the car and took him to the hospital. He just decided not to update anyone because he didn't want to stress us out. That is wholly suspicious. I don't believe him at all. I think my uncle is responsible for what happened to my dad and was avoiding us out of guilt. No, I agree. And probably avoiding you until he could get your dad to be coherent again, to try and gather what your dad remembers, perhaps, to see what he can get away with. Because I feel you might be onto something there, OP. I feel like the uncle is very suspicious here. After I posted here, I went to work, and once I was clocked out, I went to my dad and uncle's place. Dad and uncle's cars were gone, only my aunt's was there. I went and knocked on, but nobody answered. People in my last post mentioned carbon monoxide poisoning, and I was kind of freaked out thinking my arm was just effing dead inside. So I went around the house testing the doors and windows to see if I could get in. The back door was unlocked, so I just let myself inside and looked around. Yeah, I would probably be freaking out a little bit too if everyone had mentioned carbon monoxide. I can't even tell you how often I check that my carbon monoxide monitor is working. I press that little test button at least twice a week. It freaks everyone out because it's loud as hell, but I'd rather know it's working, you know? I even checked underneath the bed since a couple people mentioned my dad could be a paranoid or scared and hiding. My aunt has this giant purse and it wasn't there, which confirmed to me that she was probably with my uncle. I went back and sat in my car and started calling any hospitals and jails that came up on Google Maps. Nobody had any answers and just said he wasn't there. I even called the cops for a wellness check just to see if maybe they could call around the hospitals and get a different answer. But I waited until 11 p.m.-ish and literally nobody came. No police, no family, nobody. Oh, that must have been awful. You must have been driving yourself insane wondering what was happening. I drive back home and try to get some sleep. The next day, I call out of work and spend the day driving around my area trying to find my dad. I couldn't track him down, so I started calling hospitals again. There's 3 in my area, and while 2 of them gave me no, he's not here, sorry, one of them got really nervous over the phone and said, I'm not supposed to give out patient information. Well, bingo. I got suspicious, kept asking, and she just got more and more flustered, hung up and drove my ass over there. I saw my uncle's car in the parking lot. It was kind of late, the sun was down, but I wasn't keeping track of time, so there was only like 5 cars in the visitors area, and his was one of them. I do not have the words to describe what I was feeling, but it was mostly rage. Like, what the F? Hello? He's been here the whole time. I went in and tried to get the receptionist to let me see my dad. She didn't really want to let me, and I'm not proud of it, but I started freaking out. I slammed my hands on the desk, screamed, knocked over a magazine rack. I guess my tantrum made someone go talk to my uncle and aunt, since she came out to the waiting room and told the receptionist it was fine and to let me through. To be fair, I can understand. After you've been so stressed out wondering where he is, I completely understand why you would have lost it like that. If she didn't look so tired and sad, I was going to maul her. But the look on her face made me calm down, if you can call it that. Long story short, she took me to my dad's room. He looked terrible. None of you know my dad, but he's a beast. He's 5'11", with massive smile lines and bright shining eyes. He's my dad, so I'm biased, but he's always so full of life. Laying in that hospital bed, he looked dead already, sunken eyes, lifeless, and a droopy face. He looked empty. I was able to talk to him for a bit, but he was totally out of it. He had to be reminded who I was several times and kept forgetting where he was and why he was here. Oh my goodness. Just like my dad, when I get upset, I get angry. I practically dragged my uncle out of the room and into the hallway for an explanation. After like 20 minutes of him making excuses and beating around the bush, another reason I think he's guilty, he told me what happened. Apparently, Monday morning, my dad fell getting out of his car and cracked his head really hard against the driveway. He got up and everyone thought he was fine, so they just went inside the house as normal. After a while, he had a headache, so they gave him a couple of prescription painkillers to ease the pain. Do we believe that? I don't. Apparently, that worked, so they just left him and continued his day as normal. If you ever have a head injury and you start to experience a headache, go and get checked out. Realistically, if you have a head injury and knock your head hard enough to be concerned, you should get checked out anyway. But especially if you start to experience a headache, it can be a very early sign of swelling in the brain, which is a danger. Apparently that worked, so they just let him continue his day as normal. They only got concerned when I called and told my uncle what happened. He kept being so weird and evasive that I know there's more, but I couldn't wring his stupid effing neck in the hospital hallway, so I just let it go. Yeah, you probably shouldn't. Although, if you strangled him a bit too hard, at least you're in the right place. Here is what I think happened. I know my uncle and dad, and I know the history of this stupid family like the back of my hands. I think my dad and uncle got in a fight over something, and dad was either pushed down or hit in the head by my uncle. The altercation gets resolved somehow, and they go back to normal. But my dad's head still hurts. I learnt at the hospital from the doctor that there were enough painkillers in his body to numb a horse, so I suspect my aunt and uncle just kept feeding him painkillers so they wouldn't need to take my dad to the hospital and admit what they did. Again, if his headache is that serious that he has enough flaming painkillers in him to put a horsey to sleep, he is in danger. Like, your aunt and uncle really don't have a brain cell to knock together, do they? They're not even sharing one. I pressed my aunt about the painkillers, and she eventually halfway admitted that they weren't exactly allowed to have them at all. I suspect she bought them off someone else. They're lightly addicted, and I just didn't know. Yeah, maybe they were fighting over the painkillers in the first place. This is getting more and more suspicious the more we find out here, isn't it? I'm almost 100% sure this is their fault. If they had taken my dad to the hospital as soon as he hit his head, he would probably be okay. I'm staying at the hospital now, and my aunt and uncle have left. Doctor says not to get my hopes up about my dad. Oh my goodness. But when doctors say that, it always means he'll actually be okay, right? That's how it always goes. They tell you that their family member probably won't make it, but they always prove them wrong. I'm sorry, but the rest is just going to be me venting. See, I feel like just the way that that was worded then, you can tell that that's what this poor OP has been sat there telling themselves in their head. Oh, doctors say this all the time. They just say it just to be, to cover their own backs. They always end up getting better, don't they? They always do. We've all had a situation where we have just told ourselves over and over again what we want to hear, rather than the actual legitimate situation that is in front of us. Oh, this poor OP. And you know what? I 100% agree with the OP here that I do think that the aunt and uncle have a lot to do with what has happened. I really hope their dad pulls through, if anything, just to actually be able to tell what they did to him. You know what really gets me? I could handle all this. I could understand it. My uncle and aunt have always been less than reliable. I can believe that this could come from them. The hardest part is the lack of concern from literally anyone else but me. I had to blackmail my brother, drama from a year ago, to even get him to agree to fly out. My mum doesn't care. Dad's family doesn't care. I mean, I can understand why your mum wouldn't care if they're divorced. I imagine that maybe there is a bit of bad blood there. Dad's family doesn't care. My sister kind of cares, but she doesn't really want to help or even come support me in the hospital with him. I am just so shocked that I'm the only mother effer here for my dad, and he doesn't even know who I am right now. I have to take time off work, but it's not like my job gives me paid time off. I'm effed. My dad is effed. My life is effed. Why am I the only one dealing with this? My brother is the only one of us with time and money to help fix this, and I had to threaten him just to get him to come back home. I wish I had chased my dad when he left my apartment. I was afraid of him, but I'm more afraid now. My dad is probably going to my dad is probably going to die, and I trusted the jackass who unalived him with helping him. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with everyone? Why doesn't anyone give a shite about my dad? Why doesn't anyone give a shite about me? Honestly, your family sounds like absolute losers. The lot of them. How awful. Like your mum, even if your mum doesn't care about your dad, which again, I can get if it was like a really salty breakup. I understand. You know, sometimes it's so hard to just let bygones be bygones, even in the worst of situations like this. But she should still be there for you. Oh, this is really sad. Like, really sad. I could have been a better daughter to him. I could have visited him more, called him more, involved him in things more. I could have chased him when he left my apartment. I might have gotten hurt, but I would rather be beaten to a pulp rather be sitting in a hospital room with my unconscious and probably dying father. I'm so effing stupid, and I'm sorry, Dad. No, it is absolutely not anything to do with you or your fault in any way. Your uncle is the one who's to blame for all of this, because even if your uncle wasn't responsible for the head injury initially, him and your aunt were absolutely responsible for just feeding him painkillers when something was clearly wrong, allowing him to drive off and leaving him to get exponentially worse. Down in the comments, KittyCat33070 says, yo, definitely get the police involved. Even if the story is true that he fell, they still pumped him up with pain meds when he couldn't advocate for himself. It's like being roofied at a bar. I hope your dad pulls through. I would cut contact with your aunt and uncle. As a daughter, you have more rights to your dad's care than they do. Ban them from the hospital. I 100% agree on this. OP then replies, on this, a couple cops just came to talk to me and get a statement. They seemed to be taking me seriously and took my contact info. I told them everything about what happened when my dad came to my apartment and what my uncle said, and how I didn't even believe him, and gave my version of things. I tried to give as much context as I could. I think they believed me, but who knows? They said they'd come round again soon. I'm not really sure what happens from here, but I'll be pressing for more information when they come back. Yeah, I really, really hope that they find out what the hell happened because, oh my goodness, your uncle can't get away with this. Again, even if he wasn't the cause of the injury, he certainly tried to cover it up and made it so much worse. I did just go and have a good scour through the comments. I typed in the OP's username into the search bar. I couldn't find any updates on whether their dad, got better, worse, anything really. So all I can say is I really, really hope that OP's dad pulled through and got better. I know with traumatic brain injuries, it can take a long time to get back to the person that they once were. But it's possible, it is possible. So I really hope that that happened. And also that OP's aunt and uncle were held absolutely accountable for the complete shite show they made of her dad's care. Or lack thereof, should I say. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave it there for today. This one got quite heavy, very, very heavy. So go now and watch something nice and lighthearted to give yourself a little bit of a reprieve or something, because I'm sure you all need it. Anyway, if you'd like to leave a like and subscribe, I'd appreciate it very, very much. And it'll also help you find your way back here because I do post every single day. If you made it all the way through this video, I really, really appreciate you. And I'm very sorry if I made you sad by reading this one. Anyway, I hope you have a really good rest of your day, whatever it is you're doing. Goodbye.